tonight, Lynn Monet is going to be talking about living in a haunted house and what happened after she moved out. This is part two of an interview that you're not going to want to miss. Be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? Sorry for the late start. Had some technical difficulties, but we're okay. In fact, look at that. I forgot to even do that. I was so busy. Hang on, let me make a switch right here so it's easier on the eyes, you guys. This is where it's been today. I didn't sleep at all last night. There we go. Now it looks like us. No sleep last night at all. Actually, my name is Charlotte. I forgot to tell you who I was even. See, that's what I mean. I had no sleep last night. I couldn't figure it out. I've been eating, because I do that tarot card reading thing at 7 p.m. every night. And I've been eating rock candy. I'm waiting on some dried cherries from Safeway. I mean, not Safeway, but Amazon, to get me through the show. Because it's really high energy. So I've been eating rock candy. I found rock candy at the Dollar Tree. Anyway, I've been eating that. And I had the dog in here last night with me when I was doing the other show, when I was reading the book. And I had some rock candy in here, and I had the stick in here, and I got it down to where there was a little bit of rock candy on the stick, so I set the stick down. Went in to go to the restroom, came back, the stick was gone, and I didn't give it a second thought. I thought maybe it rolled off somewhere. So starting around, say, 10 o'clock at night, when I got done, processing stuff and working on getting letters out for this show, I decided I didn't want to go to bed, and so I'm trying to go to bed, and the dog is running all over the house. So she's barking and gets up on the couch, jumps off the couch, goes in the other room, goes into her crate, goes in the other room. Couldn't figure out what was going on. And then around 4 in the morning, I hear her crunching on something in her crate. Go looking around in there, and I find the stick. And I'll show you what it looks like, okay? I'll show you what the stick looks like. I find the stick to the rock candy. It looks like this. And it's still got some purple on there, some purple rock candy on. So my dog ate. And there wasn't much. I mean, there couldn't have been more than, just a small smidgen going across the thing. So she had been eating this rock candy. And so this dog had a sugar high going on. That was crazy. And it lasted all night long. We both crashed around, 8:30 this morning. But that's how my night was. And I couldn't figure out why the dog was so active. But that's what happened is she got wired from rock candy. Anyway, usually I do a big spiel about, okay, if you think you have a haunting or you may have a haunting, contact California Haunts. I'm just going to cut it short because we want to get our guest on. I'm excited to have her on. She's got a great story to tell, let me tell you. We talked to her in part one about the house she lived in, and then she was moving out, and then it's the stuff that happened after she moved out that's really interesting. And the direction that experience took her. But anyway, if you need to get a hold of us for what you think might be a haunting or anything like that, just look us up on social media. We're everywhere. You just Google us and California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, and you'll find us. Okay? We'll just leave it at that. Also, I will be back on at 7 p.m., around 7:15 p.m. Pacific tonight to do tarot card readings over at TikTok and not only TikTok. We're going to be doing dual readings. So I'm going to be doing them at TikTok, and I'll be doing them at Favorited as well. So we're going to be live over Favorited and on TikTok doing 3-card tarot card readings, freebies. So if you guys want to come on and get a free reading, let me know. Just come on over there. I'll put you on the list and all that good stuff. All right. My guest, Lynn Monet, has turned into a great friend. We've known each other for a few years now, and we get along great. And it's great to have her on. I'm glad to have her on for round 2 today. Like I said, we had some sign-in issues. Even I had some sign-in issues. So, yeah. And then Microsoft had to update, and then I couldn't get my video editing software to work. And it was one of those days. But anyway, I'm glad to have her on. Let's get her on, and let's get into this story. And we'll continue from where we left off last time when she finally sold that other house, what happened after she sold the house, and what her life turned into after she sold the house. All right, let's bring her in. Say hello to Lynn Monet, everybody. And let me put the chat room up. There we go. Ah, I see you're in the chat room. Good. Okay, let me get Lynn Monet in here. And here we go.
Hey, I don't know what is happening, but my picture was black and white and then it just went dark. So I've been trying to reload the camera. But this happens, Charlotte, every time we're together because the things that we talk about don't like being talked about. So do you want me to exit and come back in? Because my camera's not working for some reason.
Yeah, why don't you try? Yeah, why don't you try for a minute? Okay. And if it doesn't, I'm fine with this, but let's see if we can get you in. Okay. And this is something that happens to us. And I did some adjustments on my camera as well, because last time I had major issues doing the show. And this just happens because Lynn's got a lot of energy, psychic energy, stuff she didn't realize she had until she had that house. And so she's got a lot of energy. I've got a lot of energy. And whatever it is that was in that house doesn't like us. And so it likes to come in and harass us.
Okay. All right. We got it.
You're in color.
Okay, good. Good. I am in color. I was in black and white before.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. And my face is like taking up the whole thing there. So anyway, whenever you and I get together, weird things kind of happen. I start seeing orbs flying and things popping on the walls and stuff like that. So, and I look like there's like a film or something.
Yeah.
Maybe my camera's dirty. I don't know, but let me see. Actually, I'm not going to touch anything because I know, right?
It's like a TikTok video. Oh, let me make sure you guys are here. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
That's funny. And I want a 3-card reading when we get off. So to do that. But I was really excited to be on here. I am sorry that we weren't able to do it the last time. But everything is better now. So, I'm glad to be here. So, and I hope that everybody had a wonderful Christmas and holiday and New Year's. And now here we go. There's so much stuff going on in the ethers, for lack of a better word.
Oh my God!
Of the realms. It's so active. They just want something. Just right now, something just.
Somebody came in the chat room. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They
just to let everybody know real quick. I think I figured out what my camera problems are here too. We'll see. We'll see. Because that camera, remember how I got fuzzy last time? I kind of figured out what it is. So I may have to unplug like you did. I may have to unplug my camera during the show and plug it back in.
There you go. Yeah, well, I look like I'm fuzzy, but I was black and white before, so this is good. All is good.
This is good. We'll quibble on ahead, yeah.
So where did you want me to start?
Well, I was thinking because when we got off last time, you had moved out of that house.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just what I want to talk to people about, what the after effects were, because you started doing paranormal investigations and stuff, and that was something that you never would have even dreamed of doing. I mean, that house, would sometimes things that are bad turn into good things for people, where like with that you didn't think you were going to be doing that stuff, yet that's what led you to do that, to do this, and it's a gift. It's a gift to help people. And that's what you've been doing ever since because of your experience. So let's go from when you moved out of the house and then go forward on that. What happened with that?
Okay, well, first of all, like you said, it is a gift. It is a God-given gift for anybody that wants to criticize it in any way. We are all born with these gifts. And as we're coming into these new elevation of frequencies, more things are going to open up. Maybe even a sixth sense. The babies that are coming in after the 21st of December are all coming in with a knowing kind of thing. They're going to have a better understanding of the things that most people can't see. Just automatically, they're going to be that way. They're going to be like little walking history books and stuff like that. So anyway, when I had moved from that house that I should say. When I sold the house that I never moved into, because I didn't. Did I tell the part about me getting off the street really, really fast? Did I tell that part?
I don't think we told that. No, I think we just ended. Yeah, go for it.
I had. Let me just back up just a little bit.
Sure.
After we had signed the papers in the house, we were exiting out of the double entry doors, which actually I have a picture right here of the house. You can kind of get an idea of what it looked like. Nice house. You see the demon's face in the window.
Yeah, of course it's watching you go naturally.
Yeah, of course. So anyway, it was a nice house. So we were coming down. I overheard the wife say to the husband, "Why did you push me?" And of course he responds, "Well, I didn't push you." And she's like, "Yes, you did." And he said, "No, I'm 3 steps back. I can't even reach you from where I'm at." Oh, and look at how sweet Mama's getting kisses.
That's
But
right.
yeah. So she said, "Well, I don't know, what happened," but I knew what happened. So when they came out with all, trying to be, my conscience got the better of me, and I'm like, you know what, I can't do to these people what I had done to me. I'm going to tell them, about the ghosts.
Uh-huh.
So I said to them, I said, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And they immediately cut me off. "Oh, we're Baptists. We don't believe in those sorts of things. We don't
Mhm.
discuss those sorts of things. We're protected." And that's how it got left. So I'm like, okay, because I would have told them the truth if they had wanted, to hear or to know. So, and also legally, you don't have to disclose that in the state of North Carolina or South Carolina.
Wow.
You don't have to disclose if somebody's passed unless they ask, type thing. And this house had been sold so many times. There was even a period of time where it was sitting empty and bank owned for a while,
Mhm.
that they couldn't even tell me how old the roof was. So they didn't know. I mean, it had literally, in about a 7-year period, it had been sold 4 different times, and one of those periods of time it sat empty for a little over a year. So after that happened, the closing went through, and and I really thought maybe they do have something that I don't have.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they are protected. Maybe because I'm considered a heathen because I don't go to their churches. That maybe they really do have something extra. And I also hoped that all of what I had done, all of the blessings and all of the people that came through there trying to fix the problem, that perhaps it would have like a after effect that
Mhm.
would maybe work out for them afterwards, or also that maybe they weren't as sensitive as I was, and maybe
Right.
the things wouldn't bother them. So about 6 months later, I'm coming down the interstate and there's a traffic backup. And in order to avoid the traffic backup, I got off the exit, which just so happened to be the exit where the house was. And I turned trying to stay close to the interstate, hoping to get back on it after I passed the traffic backup. And the house wasn't that far from the interstate. So I
Mhm.
had to make this turn on a road that actually passed by the street that the house was actually on.
Mhm.
And the house was the second one in on the right. And so as I'm passing the street, I see that there's a sign in the front yard. And I couldn't tell because of where the sign was placed. And the yards were big, they were large yards. So I couldn't tell if it was on the neighbor's side or on the side of the house that I had sold 6 months earlier to the people.
Mhm.
So curiosity got me. I had to go up to the next street. I pulled in, sitting there for a minute, kind of fretting over whether I should go down the street or not. And I decided to do it. So I said a prayer. I said, "Please, dear Lord, protect me. Don't let anybody come out and invite me in because I don't want to go in there." So I'm trying to, I made sure my radio was off and everything
Mhm.
was quiet. So I then leave and I turn in onto the street. And it was, in fact, a for sale by owner sign. And it was in the front yard of the house that I had sold them. And of course, my heart just sunk in my chest because I felt bad. I really,
Mhm.
really wanted for it to work out for them.
Right.
And I felt really bad that obviously it didn't. I was pretty sure that I knew, what it was that they were leaving from, because even if they had any ailments, having that negativity in there will exacerbate it.
Mhm.
So I went to the end of the street. It was a dead end street, and I pulled in and turned around. And as I'm heading back, back towards the front of the house, just as I get into the front of the house, my radio turns on full blast. I mean, I couldn't get it to change the channel. I couldn't get it to turn off. And
Mhm.
I literally left skid marks getting off that street. I mean, I sped up because I didn't want them coming out and or to have any attention drawn to myself. I was trying to
Mhm.
be inconspicuous. And to me, that was their calling card to let me know that not only did they know I was there, They wanted me to know that they were still there. Now, the young man did cross over during one of the clearings with the Native American Indian lady, but the other two demons were still there. So I went and I looked up in the records, and I wanted to contact the family that sold me the house. So I was able to find them, and I sent them snail mail, because back then they were still sending snail mail, hoping to hear from them and to let them know that I no longer owned the house, but that I really, really wanted to talk to them about something in reference to the house. And quite a while passed, actually, and I didn't think I was going to hear from them. And all of a sudden, I get a call from the husband, who, called, and I said to him, I was wondering, I never moved into the house because of it was haunted. And he's like, haunted? And I said, yes. I said, there were two demons, literally two demons. I mean, most people will come running, screaming, oh, I've got a demon in my house. And 99.9% of the time, it's a disembodied soul or fae or something like that. It's something else in there that's not a demon. Believe me, if you had a demon, you'd really know, you'd know it. And unfortunately for Charlotte and I, they know both of us by first name. So, definitely. And so he said to me, well, I think that you need to talk to my wife. And he said that he would have her call me back. And I said, thank you. We got off the phone. A couple of weeks passed, and I didn't think I was going to hear from her. And lo and behold, she called me, and she was like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that we sold you that house. We were even late coming to the closing because when I found out that you had children, I did not want to sell you that house.
Right.
And so I started to ask her, I'm like, look, I'm not angry or anything. I have sold the house. Those people are now selling, trying to offload the house as well, because it was that bad. And excuse me. And so she started to tell me some of the things that had been occurring in the house. She said that they had bought it out of foreclosure. It had been sitting, it was bank owned for a while, and that they bought it and started doing some renovations on it, and that they actually only physically lived in the house for 6 months. Even though they owned it for an entire year, they didn't want to sell it earlier because there's some tax thing that they really hit you up hard for if you don't at least own it for a year. And so, and come to find out too, that they had not moved for job purposes. They actually moved back in with her parents. But the thing is that she started to tell me that her husband and she were working opposite shifts. She was home with the kids during the, she would work during the daytime while the kids were at school, and then she would be home with them in the evening and sleep through the night. He would work through the night and then sleep during the daytime, while the kids were in school and while she was working. And that's kind of the schedule that they had. But she said that house almost caused my husband and I to get divorced. She said, because we'd go in the kitchen and the water would be running.
Right.
And he would accuse me of turning it on, and I would accuse him of turning it on. And then we get into an argument over it because neither of us turned it on, and the kids were at grandma's house. So one of us had to have turned it on. Right. Same thing was happening in the bathroom and different things like that. And she said that there was a period of time where her children, especially the little girl, she was 5. The son was or she was like 4 or 5, and he was like 6 or 7. They were still pretty little. And she was telling me that, like, when kids go to school, the school will tell them to draw a picture of their family. And of course, they always draw the house with a giant flower that's bigger than the house next to it. Kids just do that. And then they drew stick people of their family, but they were always drawing this picture on the opposite side of these creepy, darker stick things. And when they were asked, what they were, the kids would say, well, those are the monsters that live downstairs in our house. So the kids were seeing them. And the lady started talking about the fact that when I had made mention about the bite marks on my son's legs, and she said, oh my God, she said they were finding claw marks on their children. They were finding mysterious bruises on their children. She said that she was almost afraid that they were going to get cited, that they were doing something to their kids in the house, and they weren't. And she also said that there was a period of time where she was sleeping in the house and it felt like something was crawling in bed next to her. And yeah, and so this was creeping her out as well. And the children, you know, the little girl, she's like, the monster's downstairs, they don't like me. You know, the little girl would go down and take her little dolls and want to play and make nice. And because to her, you know, kids don't know ugly or anything different until they're taught by adults, you know, that there's something, you know, different about somebody. So anyway, the children ended up, you know, staying with the grandparents for a little while, and were very happy to do that for a couple of nights. And the husband had come home and then was called back into work, but he was home sleeping, and she worked at the Walmart. So she went to the Walmart, and she was working, and something kept knocking on his door, waking him up, and he thought that it was the wife, that the wife had come back. And so he got angry, and he got up and he goes and he pulls the door open really, really fast. And of course, nobody's there. And he thinks that she's playing a joke on him. And I mean, their marriage was starting to turn, you know, because of all of the fighting over the lights being left on and the water being left on. And, you know, the just all of these things that kept happening that one thought the other one was doing because there were only two people in the house. So, anyway, it wasn't until, I mean, it got to the point where finally they'd been fighting so much that she went and stayed at her parents' house with the kids. And she said, I'm not sleeping because she woke up one night and she could see a circle of faces around her bed, and it scared her so badly that she got out of the house, and she said, I'm going to go stay at my parents' house with the kids. I'm not staying in that house another day. And so he ended up going back to go to sleep there. And all of a sudden, he's awakened by the feeling of someone on all fours crawling up into the bed with him and laying down right next to him, like spooning. And again, he was half asleep and groggy and thought maybe his wife had, you know, come home and crawled in bed with him. And then when he sat up to turn to say something to her, there was nothing there. And he could actually see the indentations of where something had crawled up onto the bed. And so he then freaked out too and contacted her and said, listen, we're getting out of this house. You know, I'm going to come and stay with you guys too. And then they ended up selling the house and actually letting it sit there for 6 months after they had only lived there for that 6 months. They let it sit for another 6 months until it was a complete year. But the thing about it is that when I started telling people about I went to my insurance lady, and I needed to change my insurance, my homeowner's insurance, back from the house to the mobile home that I was living in, because I had to go back in there. I had sold it, but I unsold it so I could move back in there temporarily. And she's like, oh, what? She's like, you just barely bought this house and you just had the insurance and everything changed over. You were so happy with it. Why are you not living there? And I said to her, I said, well, it's a long story. Have you got a minute? And I started to tell her all of what had happened. And this lady's aunt walked into the room, or her mother or somebody. It was a lady that was related to the girl that I was talking to. And she said to me at one point, she interrupted me and she said, when you're finished, I have a story for you. She said, so go ahead and continue. So I finished the story, and I mean, the woman's eyes are big, and the other one's just standing there shaking her head. And she's like, she's like, let me tell you. She said, I had a friend, because this house was in East Flat Rock, North Carolina. That whole area is haunted. Everywhere, the playhouse, everything is haunted. So she said that she had a friend that had purchased a house in that area. Actually two, and also her niece had purchased a house in that area too. And some of the things that were happening in that house, which I'd be happy to go into some of the stories of what I was told that happened in that area if you want. Okay.
Sure.
So anyway, because this book also has to do with mental illness and addiction, I kind of want to go into that too. I don't want to leave that part out, and I don't know how long we have. So, what she told me was that I'm gonna call it the niece and the lady. So, is that her niece? They had just bought their first house. Her husband had just graduated from law school. He had just set up with an office in the city of East Flat Rock, and she was pregnant with their first baby. So she had her baby shower, and the aunt came over and stayed with her for like a week to kind of help put the high chairs together and things like that. And they were sitting at the table in the breakfast nook, and they noticed that there was this one door that exited from the kitchen that actually went down into the basement. And all of a sudden, the door would open by itself. And of course they thought, oh, well, maybe the doorknob's loose, maybe, whatever, the wood shrinks and expands depending on the temperature outside.
Right.
So they made mention of it to the niece, and she said, the strange thing is that door opens every single night at 9 p.m. She said, every night we've noticed this, that it opens every night at 9 p.m. And so the aunt and the uncle decided to stake out the kitchen at the breakfast nook table and sit there and stare at the door the next night to see if it would open. And sure enough, 9 o'clock hits. The second hand gets about 15 seconds after, and it starts and it opens by itself very, very slowly. So they ended up putting a latch and things on the door so that it wouldn't continue to do that. And they hired an engineering company to come out and look to see if maybe they were on a fault line or a sinkhole, or why the foundation on the house was shifting to create the door to open it, itself. And some of the other weird things that were happening too. They were trying to find a logical reason for something that was not logical. So, what they ended up, after they paid all this money to these engineers to come out, is the engineers told the niece that there was, because they were so close to the interstate, that during a certain time of the night, that there had to have been large trucks doing their route, going down the interstate, causing a vibration under the ground that would somehow affect her house. Now, I mean, her house was not right up on the interstate. She was about a block away from it. But this is what they came up with, because they couldn't come up with any other reason. The foundation was fine. It was properly, laid out there, and the underneath the house, everything was fine. So she has her baby, and this is really creepy. She has her baby, and she had a cradle next to the couch downstairs in the family room, and she had the bassinet upstairs in the master bedroom close to the bed, because the baby was brand new, just very, very brand new. And she was downstairs folding clothes, because the laundry room was connected to the family room, and she was folding clothes while the baby was sleeping in the cradle. And so the baby, she didn't want to disturb the baby, but she was trying to breastfeed, and any mom knows that when you're breastfeeding, you've got to use a pump or nurse your baby every 2 hours to get your milk to come in, because it's on supply and demand. So since the baby was sleeping, she let the baby in the cradle and went upstairs to the kitchen to pump her milk and put it in the refrigerator. And her aunt was in there at the time, helping clean up in the kitchen, mopping the floors and stuff, trying to help her with things that you just don't get to after you have a baby for a while. So, and they heard the baby kind of fussing, but the sound of the baby fussing was not coming from downstairs. It was coming from the floor that they were on, in the direction of the master bedroom.
Wow.
So, lo and behold, she checks to see if the baby, she runs downstairs anyways, thinking that it's a displaced sound or something. and the baby was not in the cradle. So she's freaking out. She's like, oh my God, did somebody come in through the window? The sliding glass doors were locked. She's like, someone is in the house and they picked up the baby and they've carried it upstairs and they're hiding in the bedroom because they're waiting for one of us to walk in. They're going to kill us or something. Mm-hmm. So she ended up calling the police. The police came and they came into the house. The aunt and the niece would not go into the bedroom because they were afraid that somebody, they could see the baby from where they were at, and it was laying in the bassinet. And but they let the police go in first to check the closets and under the bed and all of that kind of stuff, because the baby somehow got from the downstairs cradle upstairs to the bassinet. Mm-hmm. So police checked everything and everything was fine. I mean, the lady was so upset by it, she even called her husband home from he was in the middle of doing something with court, his first case, and ended up having to leave and come home. So the police said everything was fine, and they just kind of chalked it up to the fact that she was probably sleep deprived, probably mm-hmm. had moved the child and in a fog, didn't remember it, even though she knew that she hadn't. So they kind of led her to believe that that could have been what had happened. And so she's kind of like, well, yeah, that actually makes more sense, even mm-hmm. though I didn't do it. So moving forward, when the baby's name was Emily, and when Emily got to be about 2 years old, children, because their filters aren't in place, they can very easily see between the veils, between right. the dimensions. And so she had this invisible friend that she would play with, and she would be very actively talking to. And the mom finally asked her one day, and she said, "Who are you talking to?" And she said, "Mary Ann." And she said, "Well, who's Mary Ann?" And she says, "Oh, well, she's been here since ever I can remember," the little girl says. And so what they did is they started to go back into the history of the house and what was there before. And it turned out that many, 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 many years ago, there was a jail built exactly where their house was, and that the sheriff was performing abortions in the basement of the jail. And there was a record of a young woman that was about 17 that died after having an abortion, and her name was Mary Ann. And apparently Mary Ann was looking for her baby and was lingering in the house. They actually eventually moved and never had any other problems with Mariana from what I was told. But that was kind of creepy for them, the fact that baby. And let me tell you, and Charlotte will tell you too, if you've ever been touched by one of these things, mm-hmm. and there's anybody in the room exuding louche so they can eat the chocolate and get energized, doesn't mean that she's doing it or that I'm doing it, because we're not scared. Yeah. But if there is anybody that's triggering that, they can hit you, they can put claw marks on you, they can hit you hard enough to leave bruises. And yes, they could pick up a 7-pound baby with no problem and levitate it upstairs. I mean, yep. They can, they talk about SIDS and that there's no cause for SIDS. They think they know, but they don't really know. And it would be very, very easy for a high-level demon to snuff out a child's life by, mm-hmm. Because they have the ability to push with some force, some physical force. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the things that I did learn about. And then there's another thing too that I'll be happy to share if you want me to.
Sure.
Okay. And unless people have got questions. In addition to that, the aunt, which I'll still continue to call the aunt, the same lady, her best friend had gone through a terrible divorce, had met this wonderful man now that she's married to, and she bought a house in East Flat Rock. And she had invited the aunt over to visit and to go with her to a furniture store to pick up this elongated table that she had purchased for the foyer of her house.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that the table was heavy, but it was bulky. So you kind of needed somebody on each end. So the aunt went over and she's like, well, before we leave, can I use your bathroom? And she said, well, yeah, you know, you go and it's in the hallway, it's the first door and whatever it was. And the aunt goes in, she's sitting on the toilet and she's
Mm-hmm.
hearing these footsteps over her head that are walking back and forth, back and forth. And at first she's thinking that maybe her friend has come in the house. So she wedges open the door and peeks out the door and calls for her friend and doesn't get an answer. So
Mm-hmm.
then she's thinking, well, maybe they got rodents. I mean, they just moved in here. They haven't even been in here a week yet. And maybe there's rodents or something in the attic or a squirrel, you know, type thing. So when the aunt walked back outside to her friend, she said to her friend, she said, were you just inside of the house? And she's like, no, I've been out here waiting for you. And she said, well, I don't know, but you might want to get an exterminator because there's something that's walking around in your attic or in your hallway that you know you might need to. And she said, yeah, you know, we've been hearing strange things too. She said, and we're getting an exterminator to make sure that there's not some critter inside of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to the store and they picked up the table. They came back, they brought the table inside, put it in the foyer, and were visiting for a little bit. And she was then invited to stay for dinner. The husband comes home of the lady, of the friend,
Mm-hmm.
and he sits down in the living room on a couch that had a coffee table in between and then another couch. There was one couch up against a window and another one that's back was facing the kitchen and the dining room where
Mm-hmm.
the wife was cooking, and then the coffee table in the middle. And she said that she was talking to the husband, and all of a sudden he turns his head and looks at his hand that he has propped up on the back of the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And he stops talking and he's looking at his hand, and all of a sudden she looks at his hand and she said to me, she said, if I had not seen this with my own eyes, she said, I would never have believed it. She said, all of a sudden, the man's wedding ring slipped off of his finger all by itself, about 5 inches from his hand, and dropped on the floor on the
Mm-hmm.
ground. And they couldn't get out of there fast enough. They ended up going out to eat. And they were all upset talking about, you know, the issues in the house. And it just
Mm-hmm.
so happened too that sometimes the man would travel, and the lady was home one night by herself and also saw that wreath of faces over her bed, which they like to do to spook you out really bad.
Right.
And she went to a hotel, and they did not go back into that house to sleep. They never finished moving in. They sent a moving truck to pick up their stuff. They didn't even want to go back there to get their underwear.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and that was in the same city. I mean, as a matter of fact, that house was in walking distance of the house that I had bought. It was
Wow.
not far at all. So, you know, that whole area is haunted. And also, you know, as you had said, Charlotte, my experiencing that, which was horrible at the time. However, now I understand why I needed to go through it, because of some of the other things that I have learned and able to help people
Mm-hmm.
with. So it's like that light bulb goes on. It's like, damn, couldn't you have found an easier way, you know,
Right.
to wake up my gift? But I guess I had to experience some things, because you can't really help people unless you've experienced it too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you've experienced being attacked by a demon, if you've experienced, you know, them pulling your hair or touching you, or, you know, scaring the bejesus out of you or whatever, to know the difference in the energy. And also, you know, working with, you know, people that have passed. But it's I've had so many wonderful things that have happened too with
Mm-hmm.
that, like my ability to see people leave their bodies at the time of death, which
Right.
is the colors of heaven, which is a whole another show that might have to be part 3.
We could
But
do that. I've
yeah,
got a quick question too, and this is something that
yes.
I teach. Okay.
Mhm.
The question is, what kind of demon can pick up a 7-pound baby? Well, let me tell you. One of the questions we have on our prelim when we go into a house, because we're trying to figure out what we're dealing with. Because a lot of people, like Lynn said earlier, a lot of people think it's a demon right away. They're watching TV, they see that stuff all the time, so right away they think that whatever's in their house might be demonic. But it's not always. That's not always the case.
Right. And
Go ahead.
go ahead. So, well, and in this case, that Mariana's ghost was the one that was carrying the baby. Because this house was a completely different house than the one that I never moved into.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was a ghost, a disembodied ghost that was looking for her baby.
And one of the questions that we go over with them is a ghost can carry maybe 3 to 4 pounds.
Yes.
That's about it. Anything beyond 3 to 4 pounds, it's something that doesn't belong here on this earth. So that's when we start looking at demonic activity.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And people don't realize that. They don't realize that they can leave, I mean, horrible bruises, though, like eggplant purple. When they have raped a woman, and they can crawl in bed and rape women, so I'm not trying to freak everybody out, but Charlotte knows this too. The calling card for this activity is the fact that they will leave a woman's inner thighs and her whole pubic mound bruised like the color of an eggplant.
Yeah.
So purple that they're really, really deep bruises. And actually, they're bruises that come from the inside out, if that makes sense, because of the energy instead of the outside in. But they are the color of a purple eggplant, which, being a medical professional, those are some pretty serious bruises. They take a long time to heal, and the labia and everything will look like that when you've been raped by a demon. So, they do have the strength to do these things. They have the strength to hold a 200-pound person down so that they can do nothing but move their eyeballs.
Yep.
Yet they have other ways to do it by not just touching you. They're men. There are other ways that they can do it. But so. They can levitate a baby. They can levitate a person. They can pick up a person and put them up against a wall, and the feet are there dangling. How many times have you heard about things like that happening, or on shows or TV or whatever? They can do that.
Well, like I told you guys about the case we had out in Rockland, the client didn't tell us till the end of the case, but they'd been doing laundry in their laundry room, and something literally ripped the door off their dryer and threw it across the room. That's not a ghost. No.
No, it's not. It's not. And people, they don't realize, but it can be, they can seriously harm you. Yeah. So, and they can do other things too to make you sick. If you've got a cyst festering that you don't know about, if you've got cancer, if you've got, if your Meniere's disease has gone into remission, which is that ear ringing dizzy thing, they can bring it and make it active. They can exacerbate those problems. They can make you sick too. If you wake up with a sore throat or runny nose or anything like that, they can do stuff like that, and people don't realize it. But the thing that I learned is that by going through all of that and having also the mix in is there's the dark side of paranormal, there's also the white side, and being able to connect in with the beauty of all of that as well. In this book, what happens next, I went back to nursing. I went back to school to further my degree in nursing later in life. I was in my 50s, actually, I think, because I'll be 62 in May. And there were 8 of us nurses that were placed in an area that was an intake area in a facility. So we were doing our psych class, but we also had to go into institutions and facilities and follow patients in the facility type thing. But we weren't allowed to do nursing care on them. It was hands off. It was more of a monitoring kind of watching over them. So there were 8 of us. We went into this area that was an intake area that you actually had to sign papers to not hold the facility responsible if for some reason somebody bit you or hit you in the head or choked you. I mean, it was that bad because in the intake area, the people, their meds hadn't balanced them out yet. They were still combative. They were still a lot of things. And we're standing there. The teachers stepped away to get our assignments, which is our assignment of clients that we can follow, that are docile enough to be followed, for that matter. So there's this young woman. She was probably about 5'5", a little bit more on the curvy side. She had short hair. Her skin was like this ashen color almost. It almost had a gray look to it. She had on this like tank top with thin spaghetti straps. Her midriff was showing. She had on shorts. And of course, back then, they were wearing them down on the hips, the lower rise ones. And I'm mentioning this for a reason, but she came up to the group and she pointed at me and she said, "You can help me. I know you can." And of course, I'm like, oh God, I hope she's not talking to me. So I'm kind of looking over my shoulder to see if there's somebody behind me. And fortunately, there was another nurse behind me who's smiling, type thing. And I mean, I didn't want to be there for that purpose. For one, I wasn't prepared. I had my own personal things going on. If I'm going to come into a situation like that, there's a whole ritual that I have to go through, even when I talk to people in sessions or anything like that, because I don't want your bugs going home with me. Right. So, and if you're under duress or stress, and my mother had cancer, was living with me, I was going through a divorce, yada, yada, yada. So my field needed some help at that time. So anyway, the teacher comes through and she ushers us away and she says, "Don't make eye contact." And she ushers us into this different room. And all of a sudden, I got chosen and one other nurse got chosen to be placed back into the intake area. And we're sitting there. They had picnic tables that were bolted to the floor and I was sitting at one of them with the other nurse that was in there with me. And we were documenting because our patients have modules where they have to like go sit in counseling groups or go meet with their social worker or go meet with their psychiatrist or classes that they're taking. So in ours, we're both tied up in whatever it was that they were doing. So we were taking the opportunity to do the documentation on them. And the young lady comes over and she sits down with us with her legs. My legs were under the table. She sat down with her back against the table and her feet were going outward. And this woman was covered in claw marks. And I say that because in the house that I purchased that I never moved into, my best friend was standing next to me in the kitchen when she was attacked by a demon and being actively clawed on her back and her stomach while I stood next to her in that kitchen. So they looked just like those my friend's claw marks. There was a single claw mark. It was welting and in her case it was welting and beating blood. These were scabbed over, and sometimes they're threes, sometimes they're ones. They look like a cat scratch, is what they look like. And but she had them coming out of her nose, out of her ear. She had them on areas on her back that there's no way that she could have done that, especially at the angle that they were at to herself. And the facility was saying that they were self-inflicted. She even went on to share with us that there was one demon that had an extremely long nail that was clawing the insides of her female parts. And of course, they were claiming that that was also her. But the thing is she was then called away. And when she got up to walk away, I could see on her back, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And and just to back up a little bit, she told us, she said that when she was a little girl, that she was raped by her pastor, like from age 10 to 14. And then her mom got remarried and the stepfather started raping her. And so she ran away from home at 16 and got in with this group that was doing devil worship. And that didn't turn out well for her either. And so this is what was happening to her. And now she hears 25 different voices. So when she got up to walk away from us, she got about 10 feet away and I'm looking at her and I'm like, no shit. And she's hearing 25 different voices. This woman's got attachments on her back. And the way that they looked, it looked like a Santa Claus bag over each shoulder that was clear because it was almost as big as a standard pillowcase. And these misshapen faces, some of them were upside down with the eyes on the bottom. Most of their mouths were like an O formation. but they looked like misshapen potatoes. I mean, they were pretty good sized, but they were clustered together like grapes, like if they had been in a bag, but they were not in a bag. And they were attached at the top of her shoulder with this twisted kind of grapevine looking, but hollow horn looking thing. I don't know. Some of this, there aren't words to describe it with, so I'm describing it the very best that I can in human terms. So, and it clasped underneath her armpit. It didn't go all the way around like a circle or like a sleeve. It just at the top and just underneath her armpit. And so she's walking away, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, this woman's covered in claw marks. She's got attachments on her back. She really is hearing 25 different voices. So when she came back, my client came back, and my patient was just like 2 doors down from her, a couple doors down from her. I walked over, and she was in her room, and I knocked on her door frame, and she invited me in, and I said, listen, what I'm about to tell you, if you repeat it, they're going to think that you're crazier and keep you in here longer. I said, but I believe that you are in fact hearing 25 different voices because you've got attachments on your back. And the thing is when you confront the voices, they kind of, the person will get kind of this hateful, disgruntled look on their face because of what they're immediately being told, you know, by the, you know, oh, well, you know, she's going to harm you. She's, you know, whatever they're telling her. And she quickly turned around and started to walk away. And something just came over me. I couldn't resist. It's like pimple popping, you know, you can't resist. So I stuck my fingers underneath the horn things and pulled it off. And they started to fall away to the ground. And I'm stomping them in the ground because that's what I'd seen somebody else do. So I'm stomping them into the ground, and some of them rolled over by her bed, and she immediately turned back around and she said, it felt like you were pulling grass off my back. She didn't even know what I had just done, but she could feel spiritually me pulling this off, and it was like rooted grass on her back. And I told her, I said, look, this is a temporary fix. Some of them have rolled over by your bed. I'm sure that you have some in your home, and they can reattach. I said, so we need to get you out of here so that you can go and get real help, spiritual help, in order to be able to get these things off of you. And I said, and again, if you repeat this, they're going to think you're crazier, and they're going to keep you here longer. We need to get you out. So lo and behold, about a year later, I'm in Walmart. I'm crouching down. I see these 2 women at the end of the aisle, and they're kind of whispering to one another. And so I'm checking my shoe, you know, for toilet paper, my zipper to see if it's down, maybe my butt crack showing, because, you know, I mean, everything was cut so low back then. Say no to crack. And one of them walks over, and I stand up, and I'm looking at her, and she looks familiar, but I can't place her. But it was because she had lost weight. She had a nice little blonde bob haircut. She had her makeup on. And all of a sudden she said, you're the nurse. And it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, you're, I couldn't believe it, that it was the same girl with the claw marks. And she told me, she said, when I got out, I did what you said. And I found someone to help me. She said, and now I'm off of my schizophrenic medication, and I'm only taking a low dose of anti-anxiety medication as needed. And she was in school to become a dental hygienist. So it completely turned her life around. And the one thing that I've noticed also in the facility is that people with addictions carry these things that I call archons. They fit like little backpacks on their backs. And I actually have a picture of one here. They kind of look like that. This is one of the reptilian ones with the human buttocks.
Right.
Sometimes these reptilian ones, they'll have a tail that coils around like an alligator. And that thin thing at the back of the head, they all have, where the head is much, much smaller. They look similar in the face, but they have a different body. You can see the face here. That flap, it's like a fin, but it flops. So when its head is upright, it flops like a kerchief. I just pulled it out in this picture so that you could see where it connects at the nape and at the top of the head. But these things can turn their head all the way around when they're on your ceiling. And that's how I know that the fin flops over their face. the difference between schizophrenia and addiction is that schizophrenia, the attachments are opportunists. They connect with somebody who has been through severe trauma, and their field has what I call cracks in the windshield that enables these things to attach. Usually they're disembodied souls, and the thing is whenever there's a group of disembodied souls around, it always seems like there's one soul that's either a little bit darker than the rest and nasty, or there's a demonic thing that kind of controls all of it, and hence the one with the long claw. So they are not there because of something that the person has done. They're not invited. They're opportunists. They connect on whenever they see an opportunity to do that and create havoc in people's lives. The thing about schizophrenia is it's not voices in your head. It's actually voices being whispered in your ears from things that are attached to you. So, and people don't realize, and the difference being with addiction is the addiction archons are invited. They are, through the choice of behavior that you do. And so the way that they're removed is different. A person has to do their part in order to make it stick. If a person's an alcoholic, they need to stop drinking. And the thing about the archons is that once they have attached, they will detach when you stop using whatever it is that you're using that's addictive, but they never leave your realm. They will stay in your realm. They like to jump corner to corner ceilings. They don't usually come down below like 3 feet from the ceiling. They turn their head all the way around and watch you. Like I said, you can see the little bulbous toes. There are 4 of them on this one and this drawing that I drew. This one was clinging to the ceiling. This was my brother's archon. My brother had some addiction problems. And the thing was, my kids and I would see this on our ceiling, preceding my brother whenever they would come to visit. And the thing was, my kids would see it and they're like, Mom, I think, Uncle Ray's friend, I saw Uncle Ray's friend. Are they coming to visit? And I'm like, well, you know what? I haven't heard anything yet, but I bet they're thinking about it. And lo and behold, the next day I get a call, or that day I get a call that they're loading up their Winnebago and they're going to drive up to see my mom and I, because my mom and I were in the similar area at that time. And when they would come, it would disappear and it would leave with them. And when I stayed at my brother's house in the guest room, that thing was on the ceiling jumping around in his house as well. So they never completely go away. And this is why addiction is so hard to overcome, because these things, when they've been living on a person, they have a good thing going. They are feeding off of the loosh that's created by the job loss, the infidelity, the fighting amongst the family, the car being wrecked, the insurance going up, the driver's license being taken away. All of these things that are created for people, or, money loss, that are created when people are on addiction in order to maintain the addiction, and the rippling effect that it makes not only for the person, but within the family as well, that's feed off of. So, when they've got a good thing going, if people could see what I see when they go on their, people on their cigarette break, which doesn't happen very often anymore because they send them down the road. But back when they used to have a little area out back in the hospital on the picnic benches for them to go smoke their cigarettes, you wouldn't believe all of the dead people standing around them trying to get a sniff of the smoke.
Cigarette?
Yes. And also in bars, standing around people that are having drinks. They're trying to sniff, and people say, oh, yeah, well, it's like some of the places I think you and I have talked about that you've been were like the mafia, they're there with their mistresses and they don't want to leave and they want to stay hanging out in the bar.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. But the thing is that, and people argue this point. They say, oh, well, ghosts can't smell. They don't have an olfactory nerve. And the truth of the matter is that they can smell, but it's more of a memory recall than an actual smell. And if you take a minute and think about the smell of popcorn
Yeah, don't
or
get me started on that. This is your
okay,
fault tonight, because
I
that's what I'm
know.
gonna have to have now. Go ahead.
Okay, or chocolate chip cookies baking or
Right.
pumpkin pie, you can
Right.
smell it. And if you think about it even harder, you can taste it. And on
Yeah.
the other side, they do everything by thought. So if they want to partake in eating something, my mom has told me this, they think of it and it comes, the flavor and the sensation comes to them as if they're eating it,
Mm-hmm.
but without the calories. So in the same token, these beings, it's a memory recall for them. And also there are some that they also sometimes, a friend of mine, Cisco, calls them jumpers, where they actually will enter into somebody temporarily, and all of a sudden you'll see a guy sitting there who regularly comes in and orders like a just a tonic water.
Mm-hmm.
He's just sitting there relaxing. He doesn't drink alcohol, or if he does, it's something like something mild, type thing, maybe a screwdriver or something. And then all of a sudden, you'll see this ghost come up behind the person and kind of enter halfway in, and the facial expression actually changes on the person,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden they want some Jack Daniels or some wild turkey, and the bartender's taken back by it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, well, really, you usually only drink screwdriver gin and tonic and you want it mild, and now all of a sudden they want this kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and their demeanor changes, sometimes their accent even changes. So there are also spirits that can do that if they want, if they have been around long enough and know how to manage their energy, they can connect in, and depending on how the person that's drinking, how protected they are with their auric field, which is so important for people to take care of. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you people with addictions, especially the dudes, if you're in there in a peep show, you're having a moment in there for your little peep show, you may be surprised how many fans you have watching with you in that peep show, and you might want to be charging admission for what you're doing in there. So, I mean, I'm telling you, and people
Well,
don't real. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
there's a question in the chat room.
Okay.
Where do these ones that attach to you for addictions come from?
You know, usually and I know this sounds weird. I'm finding that they're familial in the sense that, like, for instance, if an uncle passes away that has been an alcoholic and his archon detaches, they kind of linger around the family members first to see who
Mm-hmm.
they can attach to, and they will focus on teenagers. They will focus on teenagers because the teenager has a wonderful life ahead of them, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to negate that. They want to interfere with that. So if you have anybody going through puberty or that sort of thing, they tend to linger around them more, but they will interchange. And sometimes it's just something that you might be at a party and something jumps on you there, but usually it's not like they have babies. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? It's not like
Mm-hmm.
they duplicate, because they're an actual entity in itself. But yeah, usually it is a like my father was an alcoholic. I'm pretty sure that he received the
Mm-hmm.
alcoholic archon from his father, and then my brother received it from my type thing, or one within the family that's kind of on standby when if that makes sense. I'm hoping
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Well, I think what she's alluding to is that you mentioned that they're reptilian, which brings in the thought of aliens. When we
Yeah,
think
well,
about reptilian beings.
okay, well, they also look like spiders and crabs.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, they're and recently I have found that there are some that are Luciferian, for lack of a better word, and they sit on people's backs, and they are about this big, like the
Mm-hmm.
size of a shoe, and they look like one of those roly poly bugs that when you lift up a rock, you got the little roly poly bugs that if you pick them up, they go into little balls with all the
Yeah, they
little
were fun. I
feet.
played with them as a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they are segmented and they look like that, and they
Okay.
literally have the feet tentacles going in to their system, and this is spiritually that you can see them. And when I go in and I call it out on people,
Mm-hmm.
then the shell part is hard to get, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh well, gee, Lucifer gave me that scar, and I'm like, ugh, I don't, I don't. I can do demons. I don't like to do them because they're above my pay grade, and I will only do them for family members or very, very close friends because of the repercussion
Yes.
that you suffer from for months afterwards, and people don't realize that. So if you've got demons, call somebody else. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry, type thing. I can do other spirits, but yeah, I'm not. But the thing is they could be, very well could be some form of reptilian. The spiders have the same thing where the round body and the smaller head with the fin thing, the head always looks kind of similar. And their legs, because there are 8, 2 of them attach at the shoulder and 2 of them attach at the hips. What happened? I didn't touch anything.
I didn't do it.
The things in the room.
Well,
So
confetti has to be good, so somebody's protecting you.
yes, I'm sure that they are the fae. Some of the little fae beings are in here right now, so they probably are on the job. But the thing is that then there are the crabs, and the question that a lot of times that people, and the crabs connect in the same way too, with the 2 and
Right.
the 2 and 2. Crabs are the hardest ones to get off of people.
I heard that, yeah.
The thing about it is that where was I going with this? I'm having a brain fart. I'm sorry.
It's okay, we do it.
Yeah.
We're in our 60s, we can do that.
Yes, we still look damn good though.
Yeah, we do.
So, but it just, what was I looking for? I'm not sure where these creatures come from because they're not demonic in that sense. They are literally from somewhere else. So I would not be surprised if they were of the reptilians or the greys or something else or some other segment of that, and that they latch onto people and ride onto people. And it makes it very, very hard for people to overcome addiction once they've started it, because that thing lingers and it's constantly trying to bait them to mess up so that they can reattach. I mean, they had a good thing going.
Right.
And a lot of times too, people will call people like Charlotte and I to come out and, oh, I've got demons in my house. But yet they then turn around and roll the red carpet right back out because they're not telling you about their little powder problem, that they're snorting, or the fact that they've got, porno on their computer or different things like that, and that behaviors have to change. The behaviors have to change if you really want these things to work, type thing. And so, or they have a Ouija board in their closet. People don't do the Ouija boards, please. I know that there are some people that are really, really good at that know what they're doing because they close the portals when they finish. But please, there are pink ones that are Barbie and blue ones for Ken that came out in 2020, I believe. And the thing about it is you have to be 16 to get a driver's license. What?
2008.
Oh, 2008. I'm sorry. My daughter just corrected me. You have to be 16 to get a driver's license, 18 or 21 to have a drink, but you can be 11 years old and open portals to let demons in with these damn things. Hello. It's just, no. Please torch them. I go through Walmart and I want to take a torch and just burn them all up.
Did you see that? Somebody agreed with you from wherever. Did you see the hand come up?
No,
Yeah, I saw
Did
a
you?
meme come up while you were saying that, and it was again like the
There's a lot of spirit activity in here right now.
But I hate to say it's funny because it's on your side, but I'm glad
it's my side instead of yours because usually it's your side.
Usually it's my side, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all good things. There's nothing negative in here at all. I have a lot of fae that come in around me, and they kind of like to be recognized. But of course, the things don't like to be talked about either that we're talking about that way. But how much longer do we have?
About 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes.
We'll have to have you on for part 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. And 111 Becca Drive is getting ready to come out here February 1st, I believe. It'll be done and good to go. And then I'm writing the 4th book in the Omnipresent series about the Fey realm. I am working on a retreat in Louisiana that people can come out and stay in to just to connect with some really, really beautiful energy. I'm going to be having classes, and it's going to be a very, very nice, energetic place to stay. I'll tell you a lot more about that as it comes up. I'm going to be doing classes here. I'm going to be starting on a radio podcast show with Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis is on this show, and they're now doing a podcast part. They wanted a female hostess, so they asked me to do it. So I'm going to do that, and of course, I'm going to have you on my show when that happens. It's out of California, so it'll be right on your time.
There we go.
So that's going to be coming up in March sometime. There are some things that they're shifting and getting set up for me to be able to do that. I'm currently on Gaia. I'm streaming with George Norrie Beyond Belief. And I also will be in Charlotte. George Norrie's coming in to do a show, and I am going to be attending that. So I'm not a guest at this point. I'm going to kind of go in as a surprise for him, actually, but I will be there. If anybody wants, boys, I just saw one fly right by. If anybody is in that area or going to be getting tickets for that, please find me and say hello. I would love to say hello to you. So and my books are on Amazon or on my website. There are a few of them that are in back order. That's been taking me a little bit of a time to get out, but most of those shipments should be in completely here very, very soon. I'm going to be redoing my website so that there's any shows that I'm in coming up. If you want to come and see me in person, or if there's anything, links that you can connect in with, if you want to watch my shows all in one place, there's probably, I think there's a couple hundred of those. So, but then that way you can find me through there as well. And Charlotte, my dear friend, thank you so very much for having me.
We'll get you on in February. We'll get you on sometime in February. Get you back on.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See you later.
No. Yeah. Where can I find you for the card reading thing?
TikTok tonight. California Haunts.
TikTok tonight.
Yeah.
It's called TikTok tonight, or it's called
just TikTok. Go to TikTok and just look up California Haunts.
I will. Are you going on there now?
Give me about 20 minutes. Give me about 20 minutes to put the dog to bed and get things organized. And
okay, I want to be first on your line.
Do my meditation thing. Get in the right mode.
There you go. Yeah.
Get some sugar in my system.
I know that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Some sugar going.
Anyway, love and light to everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Lynn.
Have a good night. I'll see you soon.
We'll bring you on for part 3. Okay.
That looks good.
See you
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay. Oh, that's it.